to move ahead with what we call in our agenda. It's called the armchair interview. Ladies and gentlemen, the topic of the interview focuses on social media, brands breaking the social barriers. This afternoon, we are joined by our eminent speaker, and he's responsible for building Twitter's business in countries experiencing dramatic user growth. Ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Mr. Parminder Singh, who's very fondly known as Parry. Can we have a huge round of applause? And spearheading this fantastic interview, I'd also like to invite on stage anchor and editor, advertising and marketing, E.T. Now. Let's have a round of applause for Sonali Krishna. Over to you, Sonali.
Let's start right out. Let's just look at, the West versus the East. And let's just look at, it is a given that, we're not as advanced, technologically advanced in terms of our brand behavior on social media. The West is clearly ahead of the curve compared to us, right? So just given the fact that how do marketers deal with the likes of Twitter as opposed to, let's say, marketers there? Just the way they approach.
If you know that, videos in India, because of the given bandwidth, it'll be difficult to load the videos over here. That will have an obvious impact on the way you would use the medium. So we see, in the West, we see a lot of use of videos, rich media. Not as much over here as we would want it to be because of just the technological limitation. I don't think there's any dearth of creativity or imagination. It's just about, the technological constraints that exist in the country. And sometimes also, I think it's about education and it's about empowerment. Social media works best when people down the line are empowered to tweet, to post, and to react and to be part of the moment. If the moment is gone, then you lost that, that critical juncture where you can be at the center of people's mind.
Great. So that's a great point. So you're saying it's important to be topical, right? Do you think brands are equipped in India specifically, equipped to, ride the wave, so to speak?
Yeah.
Are they really switched on at all points in time? Because you actually have to be like a newsroom, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think there are two elements to it. One is, you need to understand what your brand stands for and what's the voice of your brand, and be true to that throughout. One of the things that we are doing with agencies and marketeers is introducing a program called Take Flight, in which we help brands understand what's the voice of your brand. Imagine your brand was a person. What kind of a person would he be? Is he a kind uncle? Is he a close friend? What do you think your brand is? So think of that person, use that voice, and stay true to that voice. That's the first element. The second element is to understand all the moments that peak and trend on social media and put your brand in the front and center of that moment.
Do you think Twitter today is a luxury, really an add-on, or is it a must-have for brands?
Yeah. You should look at this in the context of the overall media landscape, not just in India or anywhere in the world. There are three things that symbolize the media evolution these days. Number one, people are now always on media. Gone are the days when people would go home, switch on the TV, and that was their media consumption. We are always on. We react to media in a very close manner. It's on the phone. 76% of Twitter's usage is on the phone. So media is much more close. And number three is we have a point of view, and we want to express that point of view immediately. That's how media consumption now is different from how it used to be. And we believe that Twitter, being a medium that's live, that's public, and that conversational, is actually at the center of that, what symbolizes media today. So we believe Twitter is a medium that's for everyone, everywhere, at every moment on the planet.
But is it a must-have for brands, for marketers?
I would think so. I'll give you an example. The interesting phenomenon these days is that whether you are watching a movie or you go to a restaurant, so the trigger could be offline, but the emotional fulfillment of the trigger happens online. It's a very interesting point, because if you look at what happened during World Cup football, we saw 672 million tweets during football. And with each goal scored, the tweet volume would go up. So what's happening is people are consuming something offline, but the emotional fulfillment of it is happening online. People feel more connected with mediums like Twitter. So as long as you think you have something to say, or you have something to share with others, or you want to listen to what everybody else is saying, Twitter is a medium for you. And the great part about the medium is there are no boundaries. Anybody can follow anyone. You do not require any mutual reciprocity for somebody else to say yes to you before you follow that person. So as long as you have things that interest you, you have meaningful interests, Twitter is a medium for you. And I think that would include a very large part of the world's population.
Lay's, for example, or if it's Surf Excel or Ariel or whatever, right? Does it require a presence on Twitter? Am I really interested as an individual to be engaging with these brands? I mean, finally, yes, I use them, I consume them, but am I really interested in having a conversation with them?
You may or may not be, but you would want to know what your consumers are saying about you.
So then you're saying that you have to be present on Twitter just to understand what your consumers are saying.
That and a lot of other things. This is the biggest gateway to the human psyche ever evolved in the history of mankind.
Okay.
You have millions of people talking about your product. You have online research, 24 hours, happening on Twitter all the time. Millions of people talking about your product. Obviously, you would not want to be, say, disconnected to that. You would want to know what people are saying about your product. And if you have something, interesting to say about your users, yes, why not? Our research in India, we just did a research in India, where we asked people one thing. Do you follow brands? And if yes, if you do follow brands, do you buy the products from that brand? 67% of the people said, yes, we love following brands. 2/3 of the people said, we love to retweet a brand's message. So not only are they following brands, they are retweeting a brand's message. And very importantly, 54% people said, as a result of following a brand, we've bought a brand's product.
What was the sample size?
Pretty big, actually. We had, in India, I think it was close to 500 to 1,000 online survey. Yeah, it was representative of the population.
500,000 people, respondents.
Yeah.
Okay. Cite one example of a brand who has done this absolutely fabulously, engaged with their audience, an Indian brand on Twitter.
I thought what Samsung did the day iPhone 6 was launched was cheeky, but it was interesting. iPhone 6 was this big moment for Apple, and Samsung had a promoted trend which said more than big, which became kind of viral over here. I thought it was interesting. It was a nice take on a global phenomenon, and people responded to it.
Are you suggesting that brands, instead of just feeding information, need to really become personalities, need to have, an attitude, whatever their attitude is of their brand, but need to show that and really, become, human beings of sorts on Twitter?
People love talking to human beings and not PR machines. And that's something brands should understand, which is why we do ask brands to think of their brand in terms of a human being and figure out what kind of human being is it and stay true to it. But that's step one. Step two is understanding the right moments that are relevant from your brand's perspective. Step three, it's a very important one, is on social media, speed trumps perfection. Sometimes brands come from the mindset of traditional media, print or TV, where everything has to be just about perfect for it to be released, for it to be in market. But remember, this is social media. If you are relevant in that moment, that's a little more important than just being perfect. So think about speed trumping perfection on social media. Make sure that the guy who's handling your Twitter or Facebook, he could be a college pass out with 3 years experience. You have to empower him to make sure that he feels confident enough to post something in that moment. Because if that moment is lost, then you've lost the relevance.
That's a brilliant point, Barry. I think most people's takeaway should be that empower the young people you have to head these mediums. But there is nothing that is really ascertained as of now in terms of, real proof that you can say, be it any medium on social, where, if I'm having great engagement, it's actually translating into sales. Mm-hmm. Is there any such real data that you can throw out to say that, if you do really well on Twitter, then, you're really going to increase your sales?
No, absolutely. I think there are three things that we do to help address this. I think it's an important point that you raise. People need to be sure and comfortable with the idea of engagement and really know that it is having a meaningful business impact. And we handle this in 3 stages. One, we do a lot of research which very clearly shows how engagement is linked to better brand favorability and purchase. We also do customized research with brands in the context of their campaigns. So we've done that in India with a lot of brands, elsewhere as well, which very clearly shows the correlation. Plus, of course, there are brands that use Twitter to lead traffic to their website, which results in actual purchase. So that's happening as well. And that's as clear a proof of Twitter or social media impacting sales as any.
So I just want to drift off a little bit. So while everybody's talking about this great digital, the rise, sure, really, and you, of course, are a propagator of it. So we see more and more, companies, giving more and more money to the digital part of their ad spends, right? Because that's increasing. Sure. But what's also interesting is that most digital natives, so be it like the Snapdeals or Jabongs or Flipkarts or WeChat, whatever, their sudden increase on traditional media is humongous. So much so that for broadcasters, it's become a very significant category, sure, almost contributing 10 to 11% of their total revenue. How do you explain that when digital natives themselves jump their own bus?
Yeah, I think each brand has to find its own media mix truth. Whatever works for the brand is important for them. We see Twitter as a great complementary medium. We are not here to siphon money away from traditional media. In fact, we believe that Twitter is, as a second screen, has a very important role to play in amplifying the messages you're putting out in traditional media. I mean, I'll give you an example. We've just recently launched a product called Twitter Amplify, and we've just launched it in India. And one of the first examples was, Star Sports and Vodafone coming together to release bite-sized match highlights of the recent India and England series. I wish India had won, but they released the highlights over there. And what that leads to is two things. One, it improves the content viewership on TV itself. That's number one. And number two, it allows a brand to be part of a certain environment, which is cricket in this particular case. So, we think Twitter is a complementary medium, whether it's print or TV. It works very well with other medium. We have absolutely no conflict with brand spending on traditional media. And we think that if you play it well, it's a symbiotic relationship that we have with other mediums.
Right. If you can, talk about what marketers today are doing wrong on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Three things.
Firstly, I won't call it things that they are doing wrong. I would just say things that they are yet to do. Number one is, I think they need to, it's important for marketers to plan their content piece on Twitter over a long term. It's a great medium to be in the moment, and that's a great thing to do. But as a marketer, do you understand all the moments, cultural moments that are peaking on Twitter over the next 3 to 6 months? And what's your brand's point of view with respect to those moments? So we've just introduced something called an Own Your Moment calendar. So this calendar is, it takes all the moments that have peaked in India over the last few months, and we give brands a sample of which are these moments. You can actually take this calendar, put it in your Microsoft Outlook or Gmail calendar or whatever you want to use, so that you know which moments would be trending on Twitter over the next few months. And then you can use these moments to put your brand in the context of these moments over here. I think it's important for brands to have a point of view and understand that, because that's real content marketing. That's number one. Number two, I think brands should be, can be a little more adventurous or maybe a little more experimental about using new technology. We have very interesting technologies that are being used globally. Vine is a great example. Vine is a 6-second video, loop video. I think it's a great technology, and I think brands could use that more. And third thing, I think it's very important, I've said this earlier, is empowerment. Empower people who are in charge of your social media accounts. They could be young, but unless you empower them, they would lose the moment, and it's important to be in the moment on social media.
Right, on that note, thank you so much for listening in, and thank you so much, Barry, for sharing all those insights this afternoon.
First round of fellow stations this evening at the ET Best Brands 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, joining Mr. Deepak Lamba as well as Mr. Anil Kumble on the dais, I'd also like to invite the Chairman and Managing Director of Madison World, Mr. Sam Balsara, to please come on stage. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get started with the first round of fellow stations. And ladies and gentlemen, let's have a round of applause for Air India. gentlemen, moving on, it's also now time to present the trophy and the certificate. And let's have a round of applause for Amul.
Such summits are very good because one side you have got the best of the brand custodians or the very experienced marketers. They are sharing their experiences with the youths or the marketing managers or tomorrow's CMOs. So their doubts, their learnings, such summits are very good.
We now march ahead to felicitate our next leading brand. Let's have a round of applause for AquaGuard. Well, what a fabulous evening it's turning out to be. So let's continue with the felicitations and let's hear it for Bank of Baroda.
For brands, actually, these are spaces where you get validated further, and it is a point where, as organizations, at the end of it, any brand is a function of the perception of your stakeholders, and when it is well researched and validated, it gives you the confidence to move on.
We love the smiles coming from the audience when we read out the best brands, so let's widen our smiles and let's hear it for Bata. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now to felicitate the leading brand. Can we have a round of applause for Colgate? Marketing excellence in the rice category. Can we have a huge round of applause for Daawat? We now move ahead also to our next brand, which also signifies a lot of innovation in terms of technology. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of applause for Dell. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to felicitate our next best brand for the evening. Let's keep that applause going as we announce the felicitation for Fortune. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on with our next round of felicitation for another pioneering name. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Godrej Appliances. Spreading their excellence in interiors. Ladies and gentlemen, our next best brand for the evening is Godrej Interior. And with that, it's also time to continue the fanfare and the applause. Ladies and gentlemen, our next best brand is Hewlett-Packard. Another very significant brand that has positioned itself for so many years in our country with tremendous respect. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for LIC of India.
Receiving an award is not only a felicitation, it's a challenge for us because the expectation goes up and we have to maintain that. We have to maintain the brand in tomorrow's world where the competition is going to be tough. And moreover, these kind of functions like this brand is a sort of a recognition for the hard work that employees have done.
It's time to drive the applause across the hall because the next best brand for the evening is Maruti Suzuki. Ladies and gentlemen, our next best brand for the evening, well, the name speaks for itself. Let's have a huge round of applause for Prestige. Move ahead with the next round of felicitation. Can we have a huge round of applause for Reliance Digital? Moving on, it's also time to have a round of applause as we announce the next best brand for the evening, Reliance Life Insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on, it's also time to felicitate our next best brand. Can we have a huge round of applause for Rupa Frontline? And ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for our next best brand for the evening? It's time to have an applause for SBI Life. Talking about the next best brand, well, belongs to the automobile industry, another very, very pioneering name. So let's have a huge round of applause for Tata Motors. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the final felicitation for the evening, so it's important for all of you to promise that the applause is going to be really loud because it's now time to announce our final best brand for the evening. Can we have a huge round of applause for Videocon D2H?
These events are really good, that motivates the corporate bodies and there's somebody who's watching you and recognizing you. We are happy about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for all our best brands this evening? And we feel truly privileged honoring them and felicitating them. And with that, I'd also like to thank Mr. Anil Kumble, Mr. Sambal Sara, and Mr. Deepak Lamba. Thank you so much for doing the honors.
It's a great summit, and it's very important to have such summits for the industry itself, but for the people. It's a great place for network, and it's a great place for changing thoughts, ideas, and therefore I like this event very much.
It's always refreshing also to step out a bit from your usual environment and exchange on such a topic because the world is changing so fast. Consumers are just taking power. It's more and more we have to listen to them. They take power in social media and so on. So to discuss brand challenge, to see, to understand what everyone is doing, to pick up maybe one idea is, I think, very good, very interesting.
Overall, it's a great experience, and I think the power of brand was pretty evident here in terms of how brand can change the name of the game, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a person, or whether it's a society, and it came up very well.